Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just hit the link in the show description to support now.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Cognitive Recalibration Podcast. As usual, I'm your host Shravan. We do have Taran with us, but it was a bit of a struggle to get him here. He's had a series of unfortunate events with his flights being cancelled and delayed, and he's finally made it, so It shows his dedication.
Well, I don't know about that, but nearly missed the movie, but somehow made it. Went from the airport straight to the theatre.
Yeah.
We'll talk about if it was worth it.
Yeah, we'll talk about if it was worth it or not. But we have a guest this week. He's our good friend Bhaskar. We've known him since basically we were kids. I never knew him as a horror movie fan, but since we watched the Conjuring movies, we've had some really good discussions on horror movies. So I thought he'd be a good guest to get on for the episode that we're doing today about The Nun. Welcome Bhaskar.
It's a pleasure to be on board. Thanks for inviting me, and good to see you in the flesh, Taran.
Yeah, no problem.
Recording in the studio.
Hopefully we have a good time.
We've all just come back from watching The Nun. We were all in the same screening, and it's only been about a couple of hours since we've watched it, so we're quite fresh out of it. I think us three have different views. I think we've all liked it differently, so you'll find out in our review. So as usual, we'll do non-spoilers, then spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, feel free to keep listening, because we're going to try not to spoil anything. In this era of shared universes, so we've got the MCU, we've got the DC shared universe, we've got Harry Potter's Fantastic Beasts shared universe, and we've had the Dark Universe.
Universe, my favourite, personally. Yeah.
Which is start, stop. Yeah. So obviously they have varying levels of success. Probably the MCU is the most successful, and they've been doing it the longest.
I would say the MCU is the only successful one. Yeah. Harry Potter one doesn't count, really.
Yeah, well, they're still sort of starting up with that.
Yeah.
I would say the Middle-earth franchise it was going well up until the release of the other Hobbit films. I thought the first Hobbit film was good, but yeah.
But the one that kind of slips under the radar is this Conjuring Universe. I'd probably say quality-wise, it's not a big universe. There's not that many movies in it, but quality-wise, it's one of the better ones. And not many people realize that it is a shared universe.
I'd say it's one of the largest shared horror universes. Yeah.
I don't think there's many.
I'm trying to think of if there's many other ones. Insidious?
Yeah.
Which was also directed by James Wan.
Yeah, it is.
So,
yeah.
Well, there's also like
Halloween.
The Halloweens and like, what's the other one? Jason?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Street. Yeah, they have shitloads of movies in those ones.
But I think this is a proper universe, because it has proper spin-offs as well. Yeah. They're not just sequels, so it has characters that you see in the movies, but they have their own movies as well.
Yeah.
Where there's a good effort to preserve continuity and carry over references.
Yeah, it's a bit more
connected,
rather than other ones. Every single movie's connected, no matter if they're good or not.
Yeah. I hereby forward a motion to call the Conjuring Cinematic Universe the CCU.
So we got the MCU, the DCEU.
No, it's not called that.
Oh,
it's called Worlds of DC.
Worlds of DC.
Yeah.
Everything. How did they mess up everything?
Yeah. They even messed up the very basic parts.
The Harry Potter one's called the Wizarding World or something?
Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's of Harry Potter anymore. It's just Wizarding World.
Yeah, the entire world. It's his world. It's the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
I thought they said it was Wizarding World.
No, I think they dropped the Harry Potter now. So it's just Wizarding World. But we'll move on to this movie. So it's directed by Corin Hardy. Previously, this is his second movie. So previously he directed a movie called The Hollow in 2015.
Haven't seen it.
I think it's a horror movie as well.
Yeah,
I think
he
I've
won
heard
a few
of it.
awards at Sundance.
Yeah.
So, in 2005, was it? 2015, sorry.
15, yeah.
I think it's meant to be okay from what I heard.
In terms of budget, most horror movies, they don't spend a whole lot. So this movie cost $22 million. In comparison, Annabelle, the first Annabelle, cost $6.5 million. So that was pretty low budget. Conjuring 1, $20 million. Conjuring 2, $40 million. So that was the most expensive. And Annabelle Creation was $6.5 million. So the Annabelle ones are on the lower end of the scale. in terms of box office, they're expecting 45 million opening weekend for this movie. So that's pretty good considering the budget that's gone into it. And for comparison with the other Conjuring Universe movies, this is overall box office. So Annabelle 1 did 257 million, which is pretty good comparing it's only a $6.5 million budget, so that's pretty good.
That is surprising, yeah.
Conjuring 1, 319 million. Conjuring 2, 320 million. And then Annabelle Creation, 306 million.
Oh, actually, it got more than Conjuring. And Conjuring 2, wow.
Well, it's in the same ballpark. So it got 306,
Yeah.
and Conjuring 1 and 2 got about 320.
20, sorry, yep.
Yeah, so they all do around the same in the 300s. But when you look at their budget, they're pretty profitable movies.
Still pretty impressive.
So I thought it would be really good if we went through a timeline of the Conjuring movies before we jump into The Nun. So I've done some research, but I know Bhaskar's done probably more than me. I think you've watched all the movies.
Yeah, I've had a pretty tense week.
As usual, I've done no research.
Just 1, 2, 3. All right, so there's 4 movies in the current existing universe. And
Did you watch all of them?
I watched all of them on the weeknights before I went to sleep.
Oh, nice.
It's a good effort.
I watched Animal Creation yesterday, and I think... Yeah, I've had some interesting sleep experiences.
Yeah.
But, that was worth it. It was good.
So the universe dates back to 1863. So that's the earliest date in the universe. And it starts in Harrisville, Rhode Island. So for those who have seen Conjuring 1, they'll be familiar with that. So that's where the witch Bathsheba, from you see her in Conjuring 1, sacrifices her baby to the devil and commits suicide. But before she does that, she does lay a curse on her land, so Harrisville in Rhode Island, dooming all the people that try to live on it and try to live in a home to be, basically they have to sacrifice their kids. Well, the mother has to sacrifice their kids specifically. So that's dated back to 1863. Then there's a big gap and we hit 1946 in California and we meet Sam Mullins, Esther Mullins and Annabelle. So Sam Mullins is a doll creator. So he makes what we know today as the Annabelle doll. So he was the creator of that. And his daughter was struck and killed by a car in an accident. Basically, it forces them into seclusion. They don't want to come out because they're all depressed because they lost their daughter. And they pray to see their daughter again. And their prayers are answered, but not by who they were praying for, but by a devil. So devil inhabits their house, and at first it does show them their daughter, so they think it's good, but then they find out that there's something else behind it. So they have a series of events with the devil, and then they realize that they can't keep this doll, because the devil goes into the Annabelle doll. And they put the Annabelle doll into a closet, and they cover it with the pages of the Bible. And they leave it in there. This all happens in about the late 1940s. So they go through these events with the devil and then they realize that they've got to put it away. And they seal it and put it in a closet. Then we jump to 1952, which is this movie in Romania. We'll talk about this movie in the review. So we'll leave it at that for now. In 1958, we jump back to the Mullins. So they reopen their doors to take in a group of girls whose orphanage just shut down.
Including a nun.
Including a nun.
Which is Charlotte.
Sister Charlotte, yes.
This happens to have come from a convent in Romania.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you haven't seen...
No. I've only seen the 2 movies you haven't talked about yet.
So, obviously, spoilers for everything Conjuring Universe related, except for The Nun, for now.
And as you can see, they're really upbeat movies.
Yeah.
So, in 1958, so the story revolves mainly around a group of friends, Linda and Janice. So Janice suffers from polio, so I think she has an injured leg and she can't walk.
Yeah, some form of crippling prevents her from walking properly. She has a brace.
And basically they're told specifically not to open the closet door by Mr. Mullin, but of course they do. It's a horror movie and they do stuff that they're specifically told not to do. So they open it and then it possesses Janice, and Linda notices the difference in Janice, and Linda tries to get rid of the doll, but obviously the doll has a mind of its own. It keeps coming back. And at the end of the day, they're saved by Sister Charlotte. She locks Janice in the Bible closet. And what they don't know is Janice actually does escape. So she escapes that closet and she goes to an orphanage down south in Santa Monica. And she changes her name to Annabelle, of all names.
Dun dun dun. Foreshadowing? Much?
And that's where we leave that story. But there is an Easter egg during the events of 1958, and they show you a photo of Sister Charlotte in Romania, and she kind of moves around the photo, and you see a flash of the nun, and that's all we see. And there is a post-credit scene with the nun as well from that movie,
which is it's an interesting take on the Easter eggs, which James Wan loves putting Easter eggs in his films whenever he has a chance. But that one was really, really subtle.
It's very subtle, yeah. You almost don't notice it.
When I first saw it, I didn't notice it. I was just wondering when Anthony LaPaglia's character was pointing at the photo going, "Who's this?" I thought he was talking about just the nun at the right. I didn't see there was someone in the shadows. So when I replayed it, I'm like, oh my god, there's actually someone there. And it wasn't. Yeah, it was just there as an appearance.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's always good to come back and then revisit how they are. Obviously, they planned this through, so they have sat down and have this storyboard that go, okay, we're going to plan this. So it's good to see that foresight.
And then we do a big time jump. So from 1958, we jump to 1970. We return to Annabelle's doll. So the Annabelle's doll comes into possession of John and Mia Form. So they move into a new neighborhood, and for some reason, Mia loves to collect terrifying dolls. It's just her thing.
Is this still the Annabelle movie?
This is the Annabelle movie. So we've jumped from
first Annabelle
creation.
or second one?
The first Annabelle, but the first Annabelle, but it comes after Annabelle creation. So in the timeline, it comes afterwards.
Yeah.
So Mia and John, they're expecting a child, and I think it's for her birthday or something. John gets her an Annabelle doll.
I think he said he was going to wait till after the pregnancy, and then he decided, oh no, just as an excuse, because he messed up. He said something to his wife, and she got angry at him. So I was like, just to make up for it, I'm going to give you an early surprise.
What, to the wife or to the...
To the wife.
To the wife.
Yeah.
He gets a wife an Annabelle doll.
Yeah, because she likes to collect dolls.
And apparently in the cinematic universe, the Annabelle doll is, at the time, considered like a very, very exclusive collectible. Like only 100 exist in the world or something.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And even going back to the earlier movie, Sam Mullen, he's basically making a living from just the dolls. Like the mother doesn't work, and Annabelle, obviously, she's a kid. So they make a lot of money just from selling the dolls. And they've got a nice place, as you see in the movie. They've got place enough to fit an orphanage full of girls. So jumping back to Annabelle, the first Annabelle movie, you find out that Janice, who calls herself Annabelle now, joins a cult, and along with her, I think it's her boyfriend, they sneak into her adopted family's home and they murder them. And the adopted family happen to be the neighbors of John and Mia. And John and Mia hear something in the neighborhood, so they walk out, and Annabelle proceeds to their place to attack them as well. But the police come to intervene, so they kill the boyfriend, and Annabelle grabs the Annabelle doll that they have in the house, and she kills herself, but at the same time she transfers the spirit of Annabelle back into the doll, so back where it came from, pretty much.
It's a different doll, though.
I'm not convinced. It might be. It looks the same. So okay. I don't know if it's a different doll, but it looks the same as the.
It looks like the same. The guy said he bought it. He said he didn't say he just said he got it. He didn't say how he got it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't. The last thing you see in Annabelle creation is they put the doll in the back of the police car. They close the door. That's it. And I feel like they would have taken it to the station. Nothing happened. They ended up selling it to the close-up pawn shop. And the pawn shop
and probably bought it.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
It would make sense if it's the same one.
Yeah.
If there's two Annabelle dolls out there.
It's a sneaky coincidence, though.
Yeah.
I cannot handle Annabelle 3 where there's two dolls.
But maybe the doll, it knows where Janice is, so maybe it's trying to return to its place. Something like that.
Some motif Sauron in the One Ring.
Yeah.
Drawn to its evil. So who are the Nine Riders?
So from then on, the forms are plagued with the supernatural attacks from the Annabelle doll, and the demon ends up demanding Mia's soul for her child's life. But Mia ends up making friends with, I think it's the pawn shop owner. Who's
the bookshop owner.
The bookshop owner, yeah. And the bookshop owner, she has a backstory as well. She lost her daughter in I think it was a car crash or something, and it was her fault.
It was a car crash, yes.
Yeah, and she's regretting it because she thinks it's her fault. So she ends up sacrificing herself, and then the spirit of Annabelle is supposedly gone. Well, so they think. But the Annabelle doll resurfaces again 6 months later in a pawn shop when someone purchases it as a present for her, I think it's for her daughter who's a nursing student called Debbie. And we meet Debbie in The Conjuring. So Debbie's a little bit smarter than most of these people. She calls on the Warrens to help her investigate because they have a series of supernatural events happening to them too, with the Annabelle doll sending them notes, which is seen in Annabelle Creation as well. So Annabelle, the actual daughter Annabelle, used to play that with her father.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the notes were slightly different. In the movie, there was always about a game of hide and seek. Find me, I found you, that kind of stuff. But in The Conjuring, it was just
Kill me.
No, I think it wasn't. It was just miss me, wasn't it? Miss me? Like, it was a question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then they go into the room and it's just all full on Crayola. They can't handle that.
Yep.
So then we jump to 1971. So from 1970 to 1971, the Warrens are assisting during the exorcism when the victim grabs Lorraine. We'll come back to this because this is related to this movie, causing her to have a vision of Ed's death. So we've jumped to the first Conjuring movie now. And then Lorraine locks herself away and Ed does not want her to be involved in any more investigations because she's had some violent visions and he doesn't want her to go through that again. But a few months later, the parents move into their perfect family home in Harrisville, Rhode Island, which we heard about 100 years earlier. And that's obviously the same house that was inhabited by Bathsheba. So then that spirit wreaks havoc on the family, and then they call on Ed and Lorraine to help. And they set up some traps to prove to the Catholic Church that there is, in fact, a demon in that home. And they definitely prove it, because I think one of their children goes flying across the room.
Yeah. Grabs the hair and just goes flying. They had to cut the hair off.
Yeah.
And then all the crosses started falling, so they definitely got that.
And I think James Wan makes an appearance, doesn't he? He's one of the
James
children.
Wan's the mic dude, isn't he?
So
He's a sound guy.
So I researched this, and that's actually not James Wan. That's an
really?
actor called I forgot his name. I think is the guy who played Drew, right? Drew, the cameraman and the mic guy. He's the one.
The mic
camera.
dude.
Yeah.
So he's an actual actor. His name is Steve Duke, I think. But that wasn't James. James does make an appearance as one of the audience members during the lecture, apparently.
He looks exactly like him.
He does look like him, and I actually thought that was James Wan.
Yeah.
But then on second, he's the one who flirts with one of the oldest girls.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's his name is Steve Drew, I think. I'll double check. But when I did see The Conjuring, I was convinced that was James Wan.
Yeah.
So basically, Bathsheba inhabits Caroline, who's the mother, and Caroline takes two of her daughters back to the house. So they end up leaving the house because they're convinced that this house is definitely haunted. So they leave the house, go to a close by motel, but then it's too late already because Bathsheba's already inhabited Caroline. So Caroline takes the two daughters back to the house to kill them, to sacrifice them, and then the Warrens arrive just in time. She's about to murder one of her daughters, and they arrive just in time. And then Ed performs an exorcism himself, and they eventually manage to cast Bathsheba out. And it's a happy ending.
Batshit insane Bathsheba is what I like to call her.
Yeah.
That was one of the freakiest.
Was that the... I get these movies confused. Is that the old dude?
Nope.
No. Bathsheba is the woman.
Okay.
In the white sheets.
Is the old dude in the second one?
Yeah, the old dudes.
Okay.
Yeah. You're thinking of the English.
Yeah, we'll get to him.
Yeah.
We'll get to him in a second. Then we go forward another 5 years. So 1976, we go to Long Island to the Amityville Horror. So now we jump into Conjuring 2. They go through the Amityville Horror sequence. And then Lorraine again has the same vision of Ed's death. And we see Valak for the first time in this movie. Mm-hmm. So I think Ed paints Valak because he sees her as well.
That's correct. Yeah.
And then she has that really intense scene with Valak how she comes out of the painting.
Yeah.
And then stabs him.
No.
She doesn't.
No.
What's
it's
the
just
scene
that
where
scene.
you see him getting stabbed?
That's the very first.
That's
scene.
the first scene. That's the first
okay.
Scene.
Yeah.
And what the directors commented on that was that the very beginning scene when you see Valak pointing that premonition out, they make a very strong statement saying that what Lorraine saw was a premonition, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the demon. That the demon is not showing her this; it's her looking at the future.
Yeah.
But the demon is just kind of feeding off that premonition energy and kind of, I think, enforcing that level of that fear.
Yeah. So the nun shows up in this movie. Yeah, she comes out of the painting or whatever.
Yeah,
Or
there's
she's-
that really intense scene where all the doors and curtains close, and then and then you see the shadow walking across the room.
Yeah. Which you see.
And for any enthusiasts who are planning to do a Conjuring 2 watch, there's 3 moments in the film where you'll see the name of the demon.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Yeah.
You'll see the letters of the name placed in plain view
In their house.
In
In
their
their house, yeah.
And right before this scene we're talking about, it's there on the bookshelf. See if you can spot all 3 times it's spotted. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think, well, we spotted one in this movie.
In this movie, yeah.
We spotted one in this movie.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
when we get to spoilers. So then we skip to 1977 and we meet the Hodgson family in London. So we've gone international now. And they have 4 kids. They basically move into this house. It's always family moves into a house and the house
And
is
then they
haunted.
get fucked.
More or less.
Yeah. Is this the one with the kid that's in the wall?
Yeah.
Or is that the first one?
No, you're thinking of that is the correct one. It's
That's
it's like something. She's in the electrical box or something.
Yeah, she's in. Yeah.
But it's Janet, the second daughter, that sees the most. So she has the most encounters with this spirit. So the interesting thing to note is that Conjuring 1 and 2 are based off true events.
Yeah, they are.
And 2, you can actually see the actual footage of the interview with Janet. She has a very deep male voice when they
It's not
interview her.
footage, it's a recording, isn't it?
No, there's a recording and there's footage as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's footage. The actual coarse voice comes in the recording only.
Yep.
But the video footage is interesting. It's interesting. It's curious to watch as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's got is this the one with the pictures as well?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, the
with
pictures
like.
are separate, but they do include that.
Yeah.
So they end up meeting with this Bill Wilkins character who used to live in
Bill.
the house. Yeah, Billy.
Bill.
It's my house.
Yeah. And
This
he's
house is
the no. There's another person called the Crooked Man.
Yeah, the Crooked Man's a separate one, and
Yeah.
apparently they're going to make another spin-off movie for the Crooked Man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the Warrens end up taking the case. There's basically some evidence that Janet may be faking the possession. There's some footage of that, but they find out that it's actually the nun that's controlling the ghost of Bill Wilkins. So it's not even Bill Wilkins that's haunting them. It's actually the nun. So they end up having a confrontation with the nun in the end, and they have to say the nun's name, Valak. So basically, the common thing with all these demons is that they don't like their own name. When people say their name, they
Shouldn't have named yourself that if you don't want if you don't like your own name, you know.
yeah. So they say Valak, and then it gets cast back to hell, and that's the last we see of the nun until, of course, this movie. But this movie is before all of these events. Yeah, that's the timeline. So we've got everything from 1863 to 1977.
Pretty much everything, except for one exorcism, which is definitely going to play a part in this
Yes.
movie.
Oh, that was sequel bait, I reckon.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get into it.
We'll get into it. So I think whenever we have a guest, we usually get them to explain what the story is. And I think Bhaskar will do a better job than both of us because we were watching the movie, but we were having fun at the same time.
I was super tired. I had to wake up really early this morning. I was just trying to stay awake during the movie, to be honest.
So, Bhaskar, what is the story of this movie?
Okay, so in a nutshell, The Nun is basically a prequel story. It is the earliest entry in the Conjuring franchise, as we learned. It starts off with some dark events that happen in a nunnery or a convent in the middle of Romania, where it starts off with, in the trailers, you just see this happening. It's this like one nun commits suicide in the nunnery, and this causes shockwaves throughout the entire, I guess, the Vatican. You could say they find word of it happening, and they send a priest and a young nun who hasn't taken her vows yet to investigate. And what goes down in the convent is basically the whole movie in question.
Yeah.
And that's what happens in a nutshell. It's quite well contained, the movie. It doesn't jump around too much. But one thing which I think this movie does really well is it's a standalone experience because it's the first. It can be a standalone experience. It doesn't need to have any preceding.
Probably don't need to watch anything.
Yeah.
Well, it
it's pretty
it adds
standalone,
to the
yeah.
experience if you've seen other ones, I guess. But
Yeah.
don't have to watch any of the other ones before watching this.
Absolutely. It's like if you watch the other ones, you'll you'll appreciate the Easter eggs.
Yeah.
One thing they do in the film as an editing process is they include, because it's a prequel, they include scenes from The Conjuring 2 just to set it up. And I strongly feel they didn't need to do that. They could have just
Jumped in. Yeah, they could have jumped in.
Leave it in its own universe. And then, the fans will obviously stitch the gaps together and make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically what the movie's about. We've talked about the demon. It tells the origin story of the demon Valak and how it gets its power from, partly, but also in terms of what its nature is. In the Conjuring 2, you just see its appearance. You don't really know what it can do or its power. You slowly find out towards the end. And I think this one just tries to build upon the real kind of dark and eerie sense of what this thing is capable of doing.
Basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's probably the best explanation of a story we've had so far.
Yeah.
on one quick round.
So the story itself, it's written by James Wan and Gary Darberman. I think both of them are involved in all the Conjuring movies. And you see James Wan's style in this movie in parts. So we'll move on to the cast. It's not a big cast. I'll go through and we can say our thoughts on each of them. So there's Taissa Farmiga, who's Vera Farmiga's sister.
Which
I thought
did
she was
not
really
know
good. Yeah.
I did not know that until this morning, actually.
Yeah.
They were related. I said, they look really familiar.
Yeah.
They look pretty much the same. But yeah, she was really good. She was the best part of the movie for me.
So she plays Sister Irene, and yeah, she's basically the main character in the movie. And yeah, she did a good job, I thought, with what she had. Yeah.
She I think my barometer for someone's performance in a horror film is, can they show fear without screaming?
Yeah. Without being over the top as
eyes, well. I think the directors... Originally, I was reading up on her choice. The director didn't want to cast her because she was related to Vera Farmiga, but it was her audition tapes that convinced him to get her on board. The way she kind of acted when she was scared, and she sells it really well. She's not like this God-fearing nun that just starts losing it and starts praying. Yeah. She actually has this sense of like self-consciousness and a sense of ability to be able to say something's wrong, and I kind of can sense what's happening.
Yeah,
and that intuition level really sells her performance, and I think that's great. It was great to have her on.
I would like to see more of her if they do anything else, because she was really good.
Yeah, I saw some interviews with her, and apparently she's not a horror movie person at all. She hasn't even watched the Conjuring movies because they're too scary. So
she's gonna have a fun time.
Yeah, apparently in this movie, a lot of the scenes she was actually scared. Like, she wasn't acting. She was actually scared.
Which is not surprising because they filmed this in a legit fort in the middle of Romania.
Oh, yeah.
There was a castle they filmed in. And parts of it were filmed in Transylvania. I'm not even joking. It's like they went to Location Scout and they filmed this in the middle of vampire country. So, yeah, if she wasn't scared, I'd be surprised.
And then I guess we got some supporting characters in Damien Bashir, who plays Father Burke. He was okay.
He was okay at parts, and then there was other parts where he was super over the top for no reason at all. Like, he was fine.
He was good until some other person came into the picture, and we'll talk about him soon.
Yeah, and yeah, that's I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he's okay, but he meets this character, and him and the character have a lot of scenes together, and it gets very over the top.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. We'll talk about it in spoilers. Yeah. And I guess the other character that was a bit of a surprise to me was Jonas Bloquet, who plays Frenchie.
Yeah, I thought he was hit and miss.
Yeah.
He was sometimes pretty funny, but some of his jokes didn't land.
He's kind of like the comic relief.
Yeah, kind
of the movie. I thought he was okay. He's got some charisma. Probably more than the other two, because he's kind of likable, whereas the other two are a little bit... They don't have much flair to them.
I thought he was okay at times. Yeah. But some of his jokes... Most of his lines are like one-line jokes. Yeah. Some of them didn't land. Yeah. Bhaskar?
He was definitely the comic relief aspect. Yeah. I'm not entirely sold on the idea of having comic relief in a horror film.
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't necessary in this movie.
I feel it's like to really...
It took away from the moment sometimes.
Yeah. It does. I think the goal, though, in filmmaking is sometimes they need to ground a film before making it terrifying. And the grounding can happen in different ways. Comic relief is one of them.
Yeah.
Now, if they didn't have him, personally, I would have felt it would have been a little bit more cursed, the experience, because it's just like there's no There's no
escape.
reprieve.
Yeah.
And that's I felt that from Annabelle Creation. There was absolutely no sense of joy. There was no sense of redemption. And there was one thing which was wasn't in this film that wasn't in Annabelle Creation, was there was no sense of power over the evil. It was all just try and run. You might be able to do something, but you're going to eventually just get possessed and fail. That doesn't necessarily happen. The priest and the nun, because they have obviously, you know, they come from the Vatican, and she's a young nun. There's a sense of ability of them to kind of ward off the evil.
Yeah.
Which is
Especially with the father character.
Yeah.
I guess.
yeah, the father.
You kind of feel like they're gonna get through, whereas in the other movies, there's this sense of helplessness. Like, how are they actually gonna defeat this?
Right.
You don't see a way through it, especially Annabelle Creation.
Yeah,
because they're just kids as well. So
it was quite surprising because there were moments seen in the first Conjuring film where it's very clear the exorcism was done with, you know, the cross of Christ and the holy water and that, and it eventually started weakening this demon, or the demonic presence.
Yeah.
And you get this idea, okay, so it doesn't like holy signs, it doesn't like holy water, it doesn't like this. Then you go to Creation and you have a look at this experience where there are nuns trying to ward off this demon, and it just gets thrown away, and the cross doesn't do anything, and you're wondering, geez, what? This film is like, there's no redemption.
Yeah.
And that's when the nun comes in, and it's all about in the center of the most holy place you could think of, like a convent where there's crosses everywhere, right? It's like, yeah, that still is not enough. And that's where it gets kind of freaky, where the origin of the evil comes out from a place where you would expect it to be protecting it from.
Well, there's a line that I think Frenchie says that the crosses are there not to ward off the evil, but to keep in the evil.
To contain it.
Yeah. And then there's obviously Valak, played by Bonnie Aarons, the same actor as in Conjuring 2. She does what Valak does.
Yeah, she does what she needs to do.
She's good at what she does. I would recommend not to stop. I think it was a combination of her ability to just have that presence.
The face. It's just the face.
And the face. I think, is she tall? I'm
sure, yeah. In real life, you can still kind of see the face structure of Valak, but
Does she have blood-soaked teeth?
Yeah.
I'm sure she's wearing contacts, the yellow contacts.
Yeah, definitely.
That really, I don't know, everything else, but the eyes are just, oh man, that gives me shit.
And there's a host of supporting cast members, but you don't spend enough time with them to even, you know, we don't need to talk about them really. We can talk about the positives and negatives of the movie. We'll start with you, because I feel like you don't have many positives.
Positives. I've already gone through mine. I liked how do you say
Taissa
Farmiga. Yeah, she was good. There was probably one or two scary parts. I would say one scary part that I remember, and the rest was just funny for me. But I had fun in the movie just because I was laughing a lot. But it's not scary.
Yeah.
I didn't find it scary at all. Yeah, other than that, no real positives from my end.
Positives from my end. I like the overall atmosphere of the movie. It's very contained, so it's within the convent pretty much for most of the movie. And I liked how he built up that suspense within that atmosphere. Like you said, Taissa Farmiga was pretty good. I thought the father character was okay. He was entertaining in parts. Overall, the acting was not bad. The performances were fine. But there were too many jump scares for my liking.
I go to negatives.
Okay, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'll go into negatives after that.
Yeah.
So we'll
get to Bhaskar first.
We'll hear from your positives.
Yeah, so mine's going to be a bit of a polar opposite. I just want to ask, what's the sign of a positive?
What do you mean?
As in, like, the physical sign of a positive. It's a cross, right?
Oh, yeah.
In that sense, there are heaps of positives. But then they turn upside down, which is...
It's still positive, yeah.
The start of the fucking horrible jokes.
Only by me. So I did find that I have to agree with Strive, and the atmosphere was a real plus. It was one of the few films where you really get to see the world building. I think that's one of the major positives. It built the situation, the location. They did wide sweeping shots. They carried over the presence of the place they were about to go into, and that was one big positive for me. Another interesting positive, which I think is going to be other people's negative, is going to be the lore of the film. They had a few choices to take. They could have gone full origin story and created something up from the ground up, or they could have just brought it up from hell and, you know, made a story. This story has a lot of parallels with one of my other favorite films of all time, The Da Vinci Code. And I had a feeling of like, oh wow, that's interesting. I won't spoil the story, but it's more so how they go about explaining the demon, explaining the history, explaining the passage of time.
I just find it funny that you've compared this movie to the Da Vinci Code. I haven't seen the Da Vinci Code, but I don't think it's like this movie.
It's only it's not that there are no evil nuns.
Is it?
And
Yeah.
and dead
But
bodies.
it is about the church, though, isn't it?
It's about the church.
Yeah.
It's basically how far back in history can you go to explain something, and this one does do a big reach.
Yeah.
It goes quite far back. For me, that was I wasn't expecting that. I was only expecting something around the same vicinity of time. Like I was literally expecting something to be created in the movie, and by the end of it, you're like, oh, now I understand where this kind of thing has been born from, has been created, and why it's so angry, and how it's got those lovely eyes. But yeah, that's my takeaway from the things that this movie got right from my end.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do feel like the convent is a real place as well. It doesn't feel like a set. It does feel like it could actually exist.
Yeah, they give a couple of like wide sweeping shots of it.
Yeah.
Which looks decent in some shots, but not so decent in other shots.
Yeah, you can see a bit of CGI in places, but overall
it looks pretty good.
It looks fine.
Overall, like even the Nun, pretty good visuals. Nothing looks that bad in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the money they spent in it looks like it went to the right spot.
So, negatives.
The
We'll start with you.
Is just like in horror movies, the ones that I do like is the ones where you can get behind the characters a little bit. But in this movie, the characters just do stupid shit on the regular. Just every decision they make is so stupid. And we'll get into that in the spoilers.
Yeah.
I think I heard a rattle over there.
Yeah.
Let me just go and take my only source of light and go check it out.
Yeah, they love following shit in this movie. They see stuff and they're like, oh, let's follow their shadow that doesn't have a person and see where that takes us. Lots of jump scares as well that weren't that scary after the jump, and some of them are actually quite funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll talk about when we laughed, but
yeah, and along with that, the plot is it's okay, but it's not great.
Yeah, it's very basic.
Yeah, it's very basic.
Yeah.
You expected a lot more from it. And even though it was a non-origin story, you don't really get much of an origin. Yeah. It's just like,
the origin's like, without spoiling it, it's pretty much covered in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. So it's not a nun origin story. It's just the nun's there and then it starts wreaking havoc. And what exactly the nun's trying to do doesn't make sense either. I don't know what the nun's trying to do actually I do. I remember what the nun's trying to do. Scratch that. Yeah. No, we got it. That was my bad.
And when you say the nun, you're not talking about the demon. You're talking about one of the nuns.
No, I'm talking about the demon.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about one of the
Valak,
nuns.
Yeah.
So the nun will hereby would be referred to as just the nun as opposed to a nun.
The nun is Valak.
Yeah, it's Valak.
Yeah. So it's not great.
Yeah.
It's one of the more terrible horror movies I've seen.
Are we going to do rank downs for this? Should we do like a ranking of all the films?
Of the Conjuring movies?
I haven't seen. I've only seen Conjuring 1 and 2. So it's
I gave you the breakdown. So based on that, give me a ranking.
Yeah, but that doesn't affect how the movies are.
It was so bad. It was worse than the film that I haven't seen.
My negatives. I agree with you. So in the other Conjuring movies, you do get invested in the characters, especially the Conjuring movies themselves with the Warrens. You're invested in their characters.
Yeah.
And even the other characters within the Conjuring movies, so the family in the first movie and the girl in the second movie, Janet, that gets possessed. You have a connection with them, so you kind of feel for them, for their situation.
And they don't do stupid shit. They do a bit of stupid shit, but you can understand why they do it. In this movie, you can't understand why they did it.
Yeah, so that was a bit disappointing because you don't really get behind any of the characters in this movie. maybe they should have spent. It's not a long movie. It's only 90 minutes, so they could have spent a little bit more time establishing the characters.
Yeah, saying that, I think the pacing was a bit off as well because it felt really long to me, and then it finished and it was only like an hour and a half. I'm like, geez, I felt like 2.5 hours.
It could be because you haven't had much sleep.
Yeah, that could. Yeah, saying that, the reason I hate this movie could be that I did not sleep at all last night, but it might have played a part.
Other negatives were basically the scares. They weren't really that scary. It was just all jump scares, so you could see them coming from a mile away.
There was this one part, I was sitting next to Travin, and he like leans into me and he's like, jump scare coming up. And then
it happened.
Straight away, jump scare.
And it was a really funny jump scare as well.
Yeah.
We actually laughed. People around us must be like, these guys are crazy. And I think music, like you mentioned when we were coming back, the music was a little bit
It
disappointing.
sounded like someone trying to imitate the music of The Conjuring, but not really getting it right. That's kind of what it sounded like to me.
I think they have the music in The Conjuring when they have the title.
Mm-hmm.
The music that comes when they have the titles in the Conjuring movies. They use that as the Nun's theme, I think, in this one.
The Nun's theme is like, it's like humming, I guess. Is
Yeah,
that what
it's
it
like
is?
a choir.
It's a really eerie,
Like a really deep.
it's
really deep,
and
yeah.
it's a deep and offsetting minor note that's
Yeah.
played by one tenor, a female choir singer,
Yeah.
in
But
the backdrop of this like really really bass music.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of overused a lot.
They only I counted, they only did it twice. They only showed that reference music twice in this one, and it's always when you see the nun somewhere.
When you see the Nun, yeah.
It's just like to show, oh, that's her, not just regular nun.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I feel like in the Conjuring movies, basically when they start the movies, they have a scene, and then they show you the title Conjuring. It just freaks me out every time they show just when they show the title. It freaks me out with that music.
Yeah.
Did not get that with this. Yeah.
This one, it didn't have that much of an effect. So unfortunately, with a good horror movie is when you walk out and it still haunts you and you can't get to sleep tonight. But I think I'll be sleeping fine tonight. So
I nearly fell asleep during. So
I think you'll be sleeping fine because you're going to be exhausted.
yeah.
What were your negatives?
So for my negatives, I have to say one thing which definitely stood out. I do have to agree on one point, was that the jump scares did get a little bit too frequent.
Yeah.
In which case you get to a point where you can start predicting them.
Yeah.
It's like the moment you see a bit of silence or a bit of like
Or
pause
the
in
music goes slow,
you
and
know,
then
something's going to happen and you don't know what, but even just that level of, if a viewer is able to kind of predict something that's going to happen, it will lessen the impact.
Yeah.
I felt the over reliance on that technique is something which is not characteristic of the Conjuring
Of the
series.
Conjuring, no, it's not. Yeah.
It's usually
because normally, it's story built scares in Conjuring.
story built, or even just there's really slow, subtle moments where it's in plain view. There's no trickery. It's just eerie,
And it's not just bang, that's it, and then let's move on. It keeps going.
It keeps going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps building.
Yeah.
Because in the first Conjuring, or both the Conjuring movies, the first 20 minutes, if you just watch the first 20 minutes without anything, you wouldn't even think it's a horror movie. Like, it's just a family moving into a house. It could be anything. Could be just a drama.
That is true.
It's like the scares start 20 minutes in. And that's when you feel it, because you start getting invested with the characters, and that's when you feel it.
That goes back to, they spent so much time on the family, you begin to invest in them.
Yeah.
Whereas because it jumps right into it for the nun,
Yeah.
it doesn't give you as much time to invest in the character so much so as finding out who they are and what they can do.
Yeah.
So that was one thing which I felt, yes, that was a trade-off. They definitely would have made a decision earlier.
I think they wanted more scares rather than. I would say I still got slightly invested in the main girl's character. Like, if anyone, slightly in her character, just because she's relatable.
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
For me, it was more Frenchy than her, because he was.
But he's not in it a whole
He's
lot.
not in it a whole lot.
Yeah.
But at least he had a bit of character. He had a bit of humor about him.
So, surprisingly, I wasn't as invested in the role of Sister Irene.
That's her name.
I was more invested in the father for one reason. He seemed to be the only one with enough authority or power to repel the evil that was plaguing this place. Not repel, at least even have an effect on.
Yeah.
But by virtue of him being a Vatican investigative Sherlock Holmes version of whatever.
After a certain point with the father, all these scenes just became comedy scenes for me. You know the part I'm talking about, but after a certain point, everything just became a comedy with him.
But I think as a whole, personally for me, I was a little bit, because on the one thing that also really impacts horror films is your location in the theater and who you're sitting next to. I'm not making a comment on you though. What I'm saying is I was sitting next to someone who was shitting himself. And on the first jump scare, almost punched me in the face because he was so shaken. He was just, you know who you are.
Yeah. I sat next to him for the second Conjuring, and I know what you mean.
If you sit next to someone who is actually like physically scared, that actually improves your own atmosphere and feeling for the movie. I might be encroaching into the positives here, but one thing which really did help sell the story was the sound design. And I think part of the sound design, not just the music, but they really sold the idea that you were in a abandoned, cold castle. And you don't know what's at the end of the hall. You just hear a creak here, a voice coming from like the corner speaker.
That was cool.
Yeah.
They really did this around.
I haven't heard that a lot. I haven't seen a lot of horror movies in the theater. Yeah. But I don't know if they do that a lot. But they kept using the side speakers.
Side speakers, yeah.
Because I was when I was doing my watch through of the series, and I'd be putting on surround speakers, I would get that effect of like a whisper here, and then like footsteps running. But it wasn't as visceral as you would say. Just like there's a main screen, there's background noises, and then the slightest whisper comes from like some corner. It's just like okay, that's just. It was
quite well done actually. And the first time it happened, I was like, where's that coming from?
And it wasn't even a scary moment.
It was a bird.
It was like a bird. It was like a crow or something.
Something really, really subtle. And I think the subtleties in the design, I could tell where the production value was put into.
Yeah, you could tell where the money went.
And I just wish they carried that over to make sure it was consistent enough in terms of the way they portrayed horror.
It's surprising because the people that wrote this are the people you would probably think that would do well. Yeah. And that's the one area that it kind of went down on. Yeah.
James Wan, I think he wrote it, but I think it would have been a bit hands-off with this movie because he was busy with Aquaman.
Yeah.
So I don't think he wasn't at the sets like every day or anything. So
But he was second unit director. So he did, there were definitely scenes where he shot in this. I'm not sure which ones he shot. But if I were to guess, it's usually...
I'm guessing it, without spoiling anything, the last scene?
The last scene, possibly?
Yeah.
It's usually the only reason why they ever have more than one unit is if they have to film in different locations at the same time. I'd say if they...
He probably filmed all the Warren stuff.
Maybe. Warren stuff. I have a feeling he did all the outdoor scenes in the forest. Because, yes, they did have jump scares, but I felt it was reminiscent of his style. Because they were shaky cam. Like they were following the viewer. Yeah. They weren't on a steady trolley or anything. They were like really, really on the ground, like you were right next to them.
It was still full of jump scares though.
Yeah. Which I felt maybe that wouldn't have been the way he would have done it if he was to do the whole thing.
The story's quite disappointing knowing who wrote it going in. You would expect more.
Yeah. Going in probably would.
Yeah.
I went in with my expectation level was set at Animal Creation. I'm just like, all right, I've seen this film. That was depressing as hell. I hope this is a little more upbeat.
Do you guys want to do... you two have seen more than me.
Yeah.
My ranking's obvious. It's Conjuring 1, Conjuring 2, and then this.
Yeah.
But you guys would have better rankings.
Well, we'll do our overall ratings, then we'll do our rankings.
Okay, yeah.
So, your overall rating?
37.5.
Okay.
Is it out of 100?
So I'll answer that question. So for those who don't listen to our podcast frequently, Tarun's ratings are not on it's like a sliding scale. So for every movie, he'll give you a number, but it's not out of the same number every time.
Yeah. I've given a couple of 30s lately.
Yeah,
they're on different scales.
They're all on different scales. Yeah. So, but going by his comments, I don't think that's a good rating this time. Even though you gave 30 last time, it was a good rating.
Yeah, what did we do last time?
Meg,
yeah. 30 for the Meg was a good one.
Yeah.
It's a very high rating.
Oh, and Crazy Rich Asians, I think you gave her 30 as well.
Yeah.
All right. What would you give for this?
So I can make my own scale.
You can do whatever you want.
Perfect. That's the best way. 5 out of 7.
You can just walk out now if you wanted to.
5 out of 7 is the old meme. I would rate it. As a number, it's not going to give much value. I would say if you're a fan of horror, watch this film. It's a good horror film. If you're a fan of The Conjuring, still watch it. Don't have high expectations.
Okay.
And you'll come out of the theater with a nice experience with a little few Easter eggs here and there. Do not drop your popcorn in the middle of the scary scene. Jesus Christ, there was someone who was dropped their popcorn in the middle of a quiet scene and gave everyone the shits. Like, just...
Everyone got scared and then started laughing.
I think that was actually the scariest moment in the movie, and it wasn't even in the movie.
Yeah. So go right behind her, drop the popcorn, everyone.
So my rating would be, I would say 4 out of 7 crosses. Specifically for this film.
You should have rated out of 13.
Out of 13.
Yeah.
Say that though, and we're going to start getting cursed audio. So, but like whispers in the background. Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Saying
interesting because we went with a group of people for this movie, and we had 13 people.
Yeah.
Well, we were meant to have. Actually, we didn't because one person didn't
we had
come.
12.
One person didn't come. So if we had 13,
We would have died.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have been
maybe it's
doing
a
this
sign.
with you.
Yeah. We were meant to have 13.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, one little detail I did forget. I remember these guys. You were talking about the budget for this film.
Yeah.
A lot of it was spent apparently filming the scenes in the castle. They had to spend like something like 5,000 euros every hour.
Oh, okay.
They hired this place out. They put a lot of effort to the creation and the authenticity. So I'm going to bump it up. I'm going to put 5 out of 7. It misses out on the other 2 because it's not as good as I think the staple Conjuring series, which were for me almost perfect experiences.
Yeah. My overall rating is, I guess I'd have to do something similar to you. So if you're invested in the Conjuring universe, I guess you should still probably watch this movie just for the continuity, but I don't think you have to go out of your way to watch it at the cinema necessarily. I think you get the same effect in your home watching with a good sound system. If you're not invested in the Conjuring universe, I don't think you'd really have to watch this movie. It's not the best horror movie well, we haven't had great horror movies this year, so it's not
there's been one good one, one really good one. Quiet Place.
So which I haven't seen, but I would imagine it's not as good as the Quiet Place.
Nowhere near as good as that. Yeah.
So yeah, if you're not invested in the Conjuring universe, I would say you do not have to watch this unless you just want to watch the latest horror movie. Then go for it.
Yeah, if you want to have some Halloween scares or something. Then, yeah, why not?
But I think we've got some more horror movies coming out for Halloween. We've got Halloween, the movie Halloween, so that might be scarier than this one.
How about ratings for you guys? Sorry,
rankings.
Yeah.
So I would put Conjuring 1 as number 1.
Yep.
Conjuring 2 as 2. Annabelle Creation.
Yep.
Then this movie. Then Annabelle, the first Annabelle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mine's very similar. I basically Conjuring 1, Conjuring 2. I think this beats out on Creation for one reason only. Creation's also guilty of the jump scares. And also the whole horror aspect is built around the presence of just one entity. And I felt this gave a little bit more expanse to it. So it edges, for me personally, it edges out on Creation. For I guess having they didn't need any precedent story to fill in. They could have done anything they want. The end result was probably not the best result, but I felt they did edge out a little bit better. So Conjuring 1, Conjuring 2, Nun, Creation, and then Annabelle, still stays at last point. That doesn't have any redemption.
I hear that's absolutely terrible. Yeah.
It's not bad, but it's
not good.
It is what it is.
It's definitely not good.
It is what it is.
Yeah. So I guess we'll jump into spoilers. So if you haven't seen The Nun and you care about spoilers, come back to this point and after you watch it, and you can listen to our spoilers. But if you don't care about spoilers for this movie, keep listening. All right, so we can start with the first scene, which you mentioned, where they bring back some scenes from The Conjuring 2.
Yeah.
And you were saying it's probably not necessary, and I agree. I don't think we needed that.
I think it was an attempt to try and get people into the franchise.
Yeah. People get excited. It's like, it's the Warrens.
Yeah.
Because I had someone sitting right next to me who hadn't watched Conjuring 2, and they thought that scene was for the film, like they had made that for the film.
For the film, yeah.
I had to tell it was actually from The Conjuring 2.
Yeah.
So that's not like the opening titles or anything.
Yeah.
And then from there it goes back to 1952. This scene doesn't make sense as you get further into the movie because they open the door trying to.
So the door says God stops here. What does it say?
God stops here. God dies here.
God dies here, or
God dies here. I'm pretty sure.
There is no God. It's basically the caption says God ends here.
God ends
ends
here.
here.
Yeah, I think it's God ends here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
basically,
In
they
Latin,
In Latin, yeah.
they go through that door to try and stop the nun. But later in the movie, you find out that they need Jesus Christ's blood to stop the nun. Jesus Christ's blood's behind them.
Yeah.
What are they doing going into the room before they?
No, I think you had to go through that room.
No, it's not.
I thought the same thing, and then when I just replayed it, when they go through the door and there's no darkness, there's actually just hallways and there's cells, and then I'm pretty sure that's where they had to go to get.
No, because first they get Jesus Christ's blood.
Yeah.
And then they go through the door, and then they go through the hallway, and they get split up. And she already has the blood on her at that point.
Oh no, I think
So
that
the
was
key-
right. Yeah.
Yeah, the key's unlocking something behind them.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they go into that place.
So
with
we're
the
talking about the first scene where there's two nuns, or one of them goes in to confront Valak, I'm assuming, and she ends up dying. So you're saying that she should have got the blood first?
Well, they've got the key, and they're like, "Oh, we have to go get the relic." Yeah. The relic isn't there. The relic is other than if they didn't know where the relic was, then fair enough.
If they didn't know it, fair enough. I felt. I'm trying to play. How did they find the relic again? Was that
It's
wasn't
Mary's statue pointing towards this wall.
Yeah. But how do they get to the Mary statue?
It's before all the crosses. Before all that. Yeah.
Before all that.
Yeah.
I thought it was through that door, but I could be wrong.
100% before all
So the
that.
first scene, what was the point of that then? Did she already have the key before she went?
She had the key, and
Okay.
she's like, "I'm going to get the relic."
Oh, okay.
But the relic isn't in there. The
Well,
relic's
I think
behind
they
them.
didn't know where the relic was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably the only explanation.
That's quite possible. Because the only way to find it would have been through the vision of Mary points the way.
I guess so, yeah.
know that.
If you didn't know that, then
Yeah, if you
wouldn't
didn't know that, then
Yeah.
how are you going to find it? Yeah.
But-
Yeah, true. So they thought maybe the key needed to go into the.
But it's a bit plot holy. It's a bit plot holy when you think about it, because like, what were they planning on doing? Just going into there and searching for keyholes?
And for some reason, I'm sure this wasn't meant to be funny, but we found it funny for some
Oh, it's
reason.
really funny. It's real funny.
So the part where she's like kind of crawling out the door and she's getting sucked back in, and she's what did she say? She says something.
Yeah.
She says something. She's like, take the key and
Take the key.
yeah.
The demon will not spare you, and then she just gets pulled back.
Yeah.
That was an iconic Conjuring pullback moment.
Yeah,
You see it happen
they
in
love the
Annabelle,
pullback moments.
Like something's happening, then suddenly it just gets
Yeah.
wrenched back by an invisible force.
I think it was just maybe her acting, or I don't know what.
It's what she said. I
Yeah.
can't exactly remember what she said, but it was really funny. Yeah, and it's because it goes south so quickly.
Yeah.
She literally goes in. Next minute, she's dead.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's like 2 minutes later, she's dead.
Yeah.
Did you hear the scream when she goes in, and then you hear that scream?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing, she went through a few things.
Yeah.
And then basically the other chick goes and suicides, which I was like, what the fuck's she doing? But later you find out why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is normally the common motif in this series is a suicide done specifically while holding a relic is done to sacrifice yourself for the relic, or like you're trying to put your soul into it. I didn't know why she was doing it because she was a nun.
Yeah, when it first happened, I'm like, that was weird.
But I felt like she had a purpose in mind.
Yeah.
She was doing it for a reason.
That is explained later in the movie, so that's fine. I don't have any problems with that.
The other curious thing was there was not really much passage of time. It felt like it all took place over one night.
Oh, it looked like maximum
Couple of
two
nights? Yeah.
Maximum 2
Was
nights.
there a day sequence after they entered the castle? I can't remember.
Well, they first go in,
Yeah.
and then she says to come back the next day. So they stay the night.
Which I have a problem with that scene, because that's fucked. Yeah. So they stay the night, and then they stay another night after that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Because she sleeps in the castle.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he hangs out in the foyer.
In the foyer, yeah, for the night.
Yeah.
Mind you, we don't see them getting any sleep, so it's like basically a full.
Yeah, I think
It could have just happened.
everything
on
happens that night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So maximum like over
Couple
two
of nights.
nights.
Yeah. And then we proceed to meet the character Frenchie.
So first it goes to the Vatican, and you meet the father.
No, I think you meet Frenchie because he sees the dead.
yeah, he sees the dead thing.
He sees
Yeah,
the
nun.
dead body hanging from,
And then open credits time.
and then it says the nun,
Yeah.
and then we
Yeah.
proceed to the Vatican. So basically, they hire this father and Taissa Farmiga's character
Yeah,
because
Sister
she
Irene.
Yes, Sister
because
Irene,
she's had the
because
visions,
yeah.
I'm guessing. Yeah.
because she had visions, they thought she could help with
It's
this.
not.
Yeah.
It's not totally clear how
Why?
they knew.
Yeah.
Or
They were speaking really weirdly. I think the main priest.
oh, dude, he was so over the top. I could not get over
He
him.
was speaking in two layers. He was like saying, the main father was like, "Is there a secret that I'm not knowing?" And he's like, "No, the only secret that's here is one which you have kept." And that's about his son having to be exercised, I realized.
That's not his son though. It's just some random kid.
It's just some guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
just-
boy? I thought it was
yeah.
boy.
Are you talking about Daniel?
Damn it.
Daniel's just a random kid.
Damn their emotional exposition. That totally thought that was his son.
So, just while we're on that topic, you know the scene where he talks about that Daniel and how.
That's hilarious.
So you know when he walks in,
Yeah.
it's very dramatic. Like he opens the door, he just stands there for a
That,
second.
that was a Kramer moment.
It's like he opens the door. It's like a low angle, and he's got his like legs wide and his arms wide.
I could have sworn there was like a few beats of a bass guitar somewhere.
Very Seinfeld reminiscent.
Yeah.
Hey Daniel, what's going on? I'm glad they put at least one exorcism in the movie to show us that okay, he can do shit.
Yeah, at least he had a bit of He had a bit of backstory, but also his backstory was not relevant to the whole story at all.
Well, they keep saying Daniel.
But why is Daniel there? It makes no sense why Daniel's there.
So Daniel is there because Valak takes the form of things from your past to haunt you.
Oh, so that's actually Valak.
Yes.
Then why is Valak a nun for Taisa Farmiga?
That was one of the forms of the demon when you were flipping through the book, and he was saying that the demon can take. The demon is born in different forms, and you see one with the winged and horned creature. So, fun fact: Valak in Conjuring 2, they shot all the scenes with Valak completely differently. Valak was meant to be a horned demon with massive horns, and it was going to be played by the same guy who played the demon in other films, Joseph Bishara, who did the Bathsheba, and he was a demon in Annabelle. They were going to do a demon for this one as well, like a wide horned version.
Oh, this was cheaper.
But what they did was they reshot all the scenes with Valak in Conjuring 2. They replaced it with a nun because they felt they wanted to go back to Lorraine's past and Lorraine's vision a bit more. To challenge her faith was, I think, the choice of words.
Yeah.
So in this one, they show when you see the book and they're flipping through the Marquis of Snake book. One of the forms is the horned demon. Then the next one is this weird baby with a snake coming out of it. And the next one is a nun.
So the baby with the snake coming out of it
Daniel.
is what Daniel
Danny
is.
boy.
Who's one of my favorite characters from this movie. Genuinely loved him.
He's the execution was always like you never got a good sight of him. He was just always running away, and then finally he'd just appear, and then a freaking snake would come out of his mouth.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's normal.
It's pretty hilarious, but also probably not too necessary. I guess it gives the father a bit of backstory.
It does. It also continues the tradition of having more than one cursed creature.
Person, yeah.
Even if it is all directed by the same demon, which was confusing for me in Annabelle Creation. I wasn't sure if the individual apparitions were all separate entities or if they were all somehow being powered by the demon. Turns out they're being powered by the demon.
Yeah.
Even the Scarecrow guy, and I swear if they make a spin-off of the Scarecrow dude, I'll be pissed.
Is it Scarecrow dude, the crooked man? Oh, is that Annabelle Creation?
That's no. The Crooked Man's from Conjuring 2, from the little toy. There is a Scarecrow that comes and animates itself in Annabelle Creation, which is just a demon putting its hands in like a fucking puppet. I'm just like, geez, that's cheap. They could have actually made a Scarecrow spin-off that a bit. And in this one, they do something similar with Danny, which is obviously the apparition.
Yeah.
Is there any others?
No,
Who does Frenchie see?
Frenchie sees
He just sees some other nun. He doesn't
just
see.
sees a nun.
Yeah.
or the nun which hanged herself and the body remains without the hood. He says that was sitting down.
Yeah.
But
He also sees the actual nun.
Yeah,
who
yeah,
tries to
well-
strangle him at the end.
Yeah. He sees the actual
Oh, yeah.
Valak. Yeah.
Valley.
Yeah.
The
Valley. So from there, where do we go?
Like he gets Taisa Farmiga, they go to
They go to
meet
Romania.
Frenchie, Yeah. This part's all really slow, where nothing much happens, which is kind of normal for a Conjuring movie, but it felt more so slow.
I guess those were the parts they were trying to build up the character. Firstly, I don't think the execution was good enough, and they didn't spend enough time doing it. So it kind of fell flat during that point. And then I guess the scares start. When I say scares, the jump scares start. So there's the scene with Frenchie, how he goes to the graveyard.
No, before that, do you know the scene where they meet the head nun or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
And then she's got this weird ass voice, and she's like, she says all this random shit, and she's like, "Oh, but we'll show you tomorrow. Just stay the night here." And they're like, yeah, fair enough, let's do that.
Firstly, you haven't even seen her face.
Yeah, you haven't
You're
seen
just
her
hearing a
face.
voice out of this cloak.
Yeah. And you don't question any of the
She's not
shit she
moving,
says.
and okay, just take her word for it.
They don't even like question it. They're not even like, oh, should we stay? They're like, no, let's stay. Yeah, that sounds like the right option.
Yeah.
You can't really make out if it's a person. I think when she first turns around, she fears like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't move.
It doesn't move.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it speaks, or maybe it's just an old lady that's been cooped up there for too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just thinking, hasn't got no fresh air. I don't
And
know.
you know the second time they see her, when the father's in the basement,
Yeah.
and he's
yeah.
just reading a book, and he hears something,
Yeah.
and he just sees her sitting there.
Yeah.
It's like, doesn't he question her? Like, he didn't hear her walk in
Yeah.
or anything. Does she just sit there all the time? Like,
Actually, see, that's another thing that happens. He sees weird shit happening. Like he sees his dead, he
And
sees the
doesn't-
dead boy,
doesn't
Yeah.
question
and
anything.
he never says, "Hold on, this is fucked up." Did you see that as well, or am I just
yeah.
hallucinating? He's just like, "Okay, that happened. I must protect this from the word of God." Dude,
There's no communication between characters. He falls into a grave at one point, and the next day he's like, oh, let's read these books that might give us a bit of answers about
Yeah.
what's happening.
yeah, the book of snakes, and he's like, "These books will get the answers in these books." How the fuck do you know?
How do you know? You just came out of a grave and there was books in there.
This is not like you're reading the Half-Blood Prince and you're like, "Oh, this is the 7th book in the installment. I'm gonna read it and find out." Dumbledore. He dies, by the way. He dies.
That's one of the funniest scenes where he looks into the grave and he's like, maybe these books will give us an answer. It just comes out of nowhere.
I actually like that scene with the grave where he gets
That's-
pushed into it.
it's a scary
and then
scene.
it's his
Yeah.
gravestone. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that was what I.
That was, yeah.
That was a well done scene.
That was well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably one
That
of
was
the
probably
better.
that was the one scary scene I was talking about.
Well, the scariest scene probably would have been the scene in the trailer, but they show it in the trailer, so it ends up
one's
not
that
being
one?
very scary. The one how she's walking, it's at the end. She's walking through the corridor and she looks back and she sees the nun behind her, but then the nun comes from
A nun.
yeah, she sees a nun. You don't see
Yeah.
her face, and then it comes from
yeah.
the side. They show it in the trailer, so
Was that the trailer that got removed from YouTube because it breached one of their shock response?
no, it wasn't that one. It was like a 15-second short, and it was literally just a black screen, and then you just see the nun screaming, and then that's all it was.
Yeah, and apparently it was misleading because it ended up slowly reducing the volume of the actual source, but you were made to think that your volume had dropped, so you would naturally put your volume up.
Yeah.
And then when the screen
And
came,
there was screaming. Yeah. That's pretty evil.
that was evil. It got removed from YouTube, so I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, well, that's good. People were convinced this was going to be a similar experience. You know, they may have got their jump scares worth.
Well, yeah, if you're looking for the jump scares, you get them.
Yeah.
Well, from then onwards, it's basically just
It's a jump scare fest, yeah.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a scene with Frenchie in the graveyard.
Yeah.
How we just laughed at I literally saw it coming. I was like, jump scare now. And then you see the jump scare.
Yeah.
But what happens after the jump scare?
Yeah, so the jump scare is that you see a nun hanging herself and she's hung. And then there's a second jump scare like 2 seconds later. He walks up to it and the nun falls off onto him and then tries to bite him. And I'm like, okay.
All right.
And it could have been scary, but the execution was just off for me.
That moment when the body just falls out and just you see it just hung by the neck and just this moment.
Yeah.
That was probably the first proper jump scare.
Yeah.
And I'll be right next to me lost it. He had a spasm, so he almost knocked me out. But I think that having someone who's almost ready to pass out next to you, it really does improve the cinematic experience. So take someone who's about to go out and just watch horror films.
So my question was, you know how she sees a lot of the nuns just randomly? So there are nuns
Yeah.
that live in this place.
But they're all dead.
So
Yeah.
are they just her visions? Because none of the other people see those other nuns.
They're all visions, I think. It's not really clearly explained, but I think everyone's, well, at the end.
I think
they say
everyone's dead, right?
Everyone's
Yeah.
dead.
I don't think when you say vision, I don't think they're manifestations of her own subconscious. I think that they're actually spirits because they communicate information to her in some sense. Like, and some of them even just guide her. You don't realize they're guiding her. Like one of the nuns just puts her in a room and then says, "Sleep here for the night," and then locks her in there. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. They're trying to protect her from the thing. And then you see another nun coming in and she's like opening the door and then she's just like, she turns away and then she's crying.
I didn't understand that.
So I got the idea. She's basically like, you're all going to die.
Yeah.
Or you're going to die.
Yeah.
And that's like, shit, that now tells me that that's a ghost or a spirit that is still kind of roaming around the castle grounds. but has come to death and is maybe slowly being taken over by the demonic force. And I think the lady in the chair, the groaning voice lady who spent too much time inside, I felt like she was an older nun and she was about to be completely lost to whatever the demonic force was. And you know how every demon in the universe has the iconic sound? Like Bathsheba had the creaking of the rope sound where you would hear it in the middle of a bedroom.
Yeah.
And you're like,
And
what's that noise? Yeah, and then the claps of Rory. And even in Conjuring 2, you would hear the floorboards creaking.
Yeah, when he's walking down. Yeah.
Everyone had their unique sound, and I think Valak's is the neck snap. You see it everywhere she is. It snaps. Annabelle's is, I don't know what Annabelle's is. Bone crackling. I don't know.
Okay.
Something.
Yep.
It's no. Annabelle's is the music. Music box.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think what you said is right, except you have to go a little bit searching for it to kind of get it.
Yeah.
And so, like, the execution was off on it. It could have been better, and just a few tweaks here and there, and it could have just been a whole lot better in terms of you would understand that a lot more. But yeah, you just have to search for it a bit more to kind of understand all that, because it just feels like a whole load of random scenes put together. Yeah. It's like, oh, the nuns are here. Oh, she's in a room. Next minute, she's not in the room. There's someone praying in the room. She goes into another room and starts praying. And yeah, it's a whole load of that.
When all the nuns just marched in and then closed the door and then sat down, started doing the vigil, I actually started getting genuinely creeped out. Yeah. It's like, you know, they're all just somewhere. They all come. They know how to come. And that really freaked me out because it was just like this sense of they're all just doing this constant vigil no matter what happens. And then it turns out they're all not physically there.
Yeah.
It was an apparition.
So my interpretation of that was that actually happened previously. So that's how they all died.
Oh, like a past thing.
Yeah.
Like a broken record just keeps...
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's what I thought happened. I think it's open to interpretation.
Yeah. Well, it's either they wanted it to be open to interpretation or they didn't know what they wanted out of it. So they kind of just put it in there. Yeah. It's got cool imagery though.
Yeah.
You give it that.
I did like that scene that you just mentioned where they're sitting so she's sitting in the middle and she's in white and they're sitting around her and they're in black.
And they're in black and it's actually a pentagram if you look at it.
Yeah.
Form a 5-pointed star, but you don't see the lines. It's just that she's in the middle of it. So it's a foreshadowing.
Yeah.
What's about to happen towards the end.
So there were like things like that visually, which I
there's cool stuff.
Thought were good. Yeah.
I think after I don't know how long ago this particular part was in terms of the story or the storyline, but the whole flashback as to the Duke who built the castle.
Yes.
And that he tried to summon.
Yeah, it was just a very quick exposition scene.
Yeah, which one of the nuns, goes through with her. That's when before she's locked in the room, basically. It's just...
And she's explaining to her.
Yeah.
Actually, so it's one of the nuns who tells her about the story, right?
Yeah.
So one of the spirits tells her about how it happened.
Yeah.
And I think that scene is the birth of Valak. And it's not I think everyone was expecting, or people were expecting, an origin story of how Valak was...
Because she's a nun, everyone thought she would be a nun from the convent, I guess. That's what I thought she would be.
Yeah.
Like an evil nun. But she's not actually a nun. That's just the...
That's just the form she takes.
That's just the form she takes. She's just a normal demon.
Yeah, just a normal demon.
Yeah.
Garden Day.
So that scene was the birth,
demon.
or not the birth, I guess you could say that was the
creation of...
The uprising from hell or something.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a bit disappointing in terms of the nun just being just another
demon. Yeah, well, they spent that scene, it's like 2 minutes.
2 minutes. It's just an exposition scene. Yeah.
That could have been maybe a better...
That could have been the whole movie.
That could have been the first scene, actually. That could have been the first scene.
That could have been, yeah.
Like the Crusades. And when I mentioned about this being close to the Da Vinci Code, that was the scene I was talking about. The fact that they brought in the Knights Templar. So they had the official Knights sign. They were the original Templar Knights. And then they bring in this priest who has a vial of Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ.
How the hell is it still liquid?
Yeah, that's... I thought that was a bit stupid. Yeah. Having a vial of Jesus Christ's blood.
And I love the fact that the vial was in the shape of an egg.
Yeah.
Like, how many Jesus references can we crack to this object?
It's an egg with the cross in the middle. Yeah. It's like, who made this?
But it was an interesting thing. It's apparently Jesus' blood has extremely powerful properties.
Yeah.
And
which
then
they quickly gloss over.
And then Sister Irene ends up just taking a chug full.
Yeah. Also, doesn't make sense. She's underwater. She's drowning. How does she drink the blood?
She may have just took a swag.
I think it's close to impossible to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how she did it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
also-
figure it out, but I can't think of
And
it.
also, why?
Yeah.
Why would you drink the blood rather than just like throwing it on her or something?
That was an interesting choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice.
It plays back to the whole, you know how wine and bread is meant to be the blood and flesh of Christ?
Oh,
And everyone
okay.
takes a
Yeah.
bit of wine. So it's a symbolic, I think, of her just taking
Yeah.
a bit of Jesus Christ's blood, but the whole mouthful is a bit too much. For me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll quickly talk about the end. It's a bit of, like you said, sequel bait. Valak, we find out that Valak basically passes,
She imprints Frenchie, I guess.
imprints Frenchie in some form.
Yeah.
So that's how Valak lives on. That's how we see Valak in Conjuring 2 as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
So we
But
see
it looks
that.
like that they're going to do a sequel where they do an exorcism of Frenchie because they're kind of
No, well, that scene that they show at the very end is in Conjuring 1. Because you see the mother in the audience as well. don't you?
Yeah. So the exorcism of Maurice.
Yeah.
It's in the very beginning of Conjuring 1.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's in the first. Yeah,
They obviously not the actor they did for the exorcism in that one was
He's
a
a
different
different
actor.
guy.
Yeah,
But they show him like he has these symptoms of he starts speaking Latin all of a sudden.
yeah.
They say he was a farmer, he doesn't know 2 words of English, but he can speak Latin.
And that's how the mother recruits them. So she goes to that lecture.
Yeah.
And she basically finds out that they could help her with their situation.
Oh, okay. Yep. So that links back to that one.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, unnecessary, I guess.
Oh, the moment he said his name is Maurice, I'm like, yeah, I know this guy. This guy's the dude
Maurice.
from the exorcism. I'm like,
Yeah.
shit.
And is it in that video? Do you see the sister Irene there?
There's only a priest there.
I thought I saw Sister Irene in there.
No, that was Lorraine.
Was that Lorraine?
Lorraine
Yeah.
was right next
Yeah.
to Maurice, and then that's what happens. Like Maurice, the guy who's going for the exorcism, grabs Lorraine, and then Lorraine gets his vision of the nun and Ed getting killed.
Yeah.
Is Lorraine she's the Warren?
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
the female.
How is she alive at the same time that this guy's alive?
Only 20 years later.
But he must be a whole lot older.
Oh no, he was
Yeah.
so. You could say he was around late 20s in this film in the nun.
Yeah.
So there's 25.
Did they age him? I don't. It didn't
Not
look like he was
really.
that age.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't quite tell. It was about 20 years between this and
He looked like he was the same age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they shouldn't have replaced him as an actor. They just
Should have just kept the other one. Yeah, because he would have just aged.
it was an interesting choice. I think that really that seals the gap as to how
The nun
Lorraine-
came into.
Lorraine's visions.
Yeah.
Why is it the nun? You know.
Yeah.
That's the reason why, because she was in that dude
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
pushing
Yeah.
crosses out of his body and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that scene was probably directed by James Wan. That whole final scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because it's got the Warrens in it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else that we want to mention? Spoilery?
Not really.
Daniel's in it.
Danny boy.
Daniel's, he's a comedic relief,
See if
basically.
you can. Oh, where was the point where you saw Valak's name?
Oh yes,
the
I'll
back
say
of the
that.
truck,
So
yeah.
there's a point where when they get to Romania
Yeah.
and they're in the town and they put their luggage onto a trailer.
Yeah.
The number plate for the trailer is Valak.
No way. Are you serious? Damn! I can't believe I missed that.
Yeah.
That's so cheap. It's like, oh look, that's an interesting number plate. How did you get customized number plates in 1952?
I don't know if many people saw. I just saw it. I'm like, that says Valak.
Did they have number plates in 1952?
Probably not plates, but they would have had some form of registration on the front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they had plates, man. But overall, I reckon, yeah,
Yeah.
go see it.
I reckon don't go see it.
You've got a wide range
Yeah,
of
you've
opinions
got-
here, so you can
You can't go wrong.
you can take any of our opinions.
I think Sravan had a good pun for this.
All right, so how many people enjoyed this movie? None.
I've got a slightly better one. How many people enjoyed this movie? One.
That's also horrible. Yeah. Both of those were absolutely terrible.
You're getting none of it.
Nah, just stop. Just stop.
All right, we'll quickly go through a bit of news. So there are Captain Marvel photos that were released this week.
Yeah, the first official.
Yeah,
photos.
so they show like some of the Skrulls. They show her in costume.
Show Ben Mendel.
Mendelssohn, who's
I
a
can't recognize him, but
who's a
it's
Skrull,
him.
yeah.
Yeah.
so they look pretty good.
Show Jude Law. And from what it looks like in the set photos, looks like Ronan used to be a good guy at one point.
Oh, okay.
Because you see Ronan, Jude Law standing next to him, like possibly as like his second in command.
Because Jude Law is a Kree in the movie, isn't he?
Yeah, and who's the black dude?
Digimon Honso.
I forgot his character's name, but he's with Captain Marvel.
He's Korath.
Korath, yeah. So at one point they all work together, clearly. So
And they also show Star Force, which is her team. I think there's six of them.
So Korath's in that team.
Oh, okay.
Korath's in that team, yeah.
There must be a point maybe when they turn.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like Ronan and Jude Law's character, who's probably Marvel. They haven't said he's Marvel, but
he
is
is,
Marvel. Yeah. Jude Law's character, Ronan, are part of the task force as well.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Was there any other news you wanted to mention?
Henry Cavill as Gerald. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
From
Gerald from Witcher 3.
Witcher
Witcher
3
3.
from the Witcher series.
Yeah,
Was that
I haven't
made like
played
a Netflix series?
Yes.
Netflix series. Haven't played the game, so I don't know a whole lot about it. But apparently the games are good. Don't know if people are too happy with the casting though. But won't really know until you see a photo of him, I guess.
Yeah.
If you dye his hair white, age him, add a scar on his eye, he might pass off. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I feel like it's too good looking, but I guess they can.
I think he's meant to be good looking.
Oh,
I think he is.
Yeah, Gerard is a huge playboy in the.
Oh, okay.
I think he's meant to be. Yeah.
Anything else?
Nick Fury and Maria Hill set photos on Spider-Man: Homecoming, so they're going to be in the movie.
Oh, yeah, and Nick Fury was de-aged for Captain Marvel.
He looked pretty good actually. Yeah.
Okay, Spider-Man PS4 came out. You've got a copy.
Yeah, I've just got the copy. Haven't played it. Haven't even opened it.
You can give us a rundown in one of our future episodes on how that is. Competition. So for those who have got their entries in, thank you. We've got some great entries. We were going to announce a winner in this episode, but what we've done is we thought we'll give you a bit more time for those who haven't had a chance to get their entries in. We're going to announce the winners in our review of Venom. So we thought that would be more in line with what we do. So we started this podcast to talk about basically mostly superhero stuff, but we've branched out, I guess, a bit more, especially with Crazy Rich Asians and I guess this movie. Yeah. It wasn't really in our what we wanted to do with this podcast.
Wheelhouse.
Yeah, but
Demons are like superheroes.
Yeah.
sort of, yeah.
Opposite of superheroes.
like glory and death instead of hope.
So yeah, you've got more time for the competition. So get your entries in before the 30th of September. And we'll be announcing the winner in the first week of October when Venom comes out. So good luck with that. But we've had great entries, including your one. We'll mention it.
It's weird.
I can't actually remember, but I read it and it was weird. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had some pretty funny ones. So we'll talk about all the good ones that we got when we announce the winner as well. So for those who want to get in touch with us, how do they do that?
So email is cognitiverecalibrationpodcast@gmail.com. Get us on Facebook and Instagram at Cognitive Recalibration and at Twitter on @CRecalibration.
And you can find us on all podcasting platforms now. So iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, pretty much any platform that you use for podcasting will be on it. So next week, we're going to go on a bit of a hiatus because I've got study and exams, which sounds very boring. I wish I could do this instead, but I've got to do that. So we'll be back in October. Thanks, Bhaskar, for being on this episode. It was really great to have you on.
Thanks for having me on.
It was good to have you because I feel like if we didn't have you, we would have absolutely trashed this movie together.
Yeah, it was good to have a bit of a light.
You kind of balanced us out a bit.
Yeah, balanced. Otherwise, it could have been a very dark review. It
would have given it like basically no quarter. Would have just completely shredded.
So yeah, it was good to have you on. And next time we have you on, you'll probably be a married man. So
yeah,
good luck with that coming up.
I was just saying, I'll be a married man. I won't have any time to watch horror movies. Spider-Man. I'll play my PS4 and just get into all the movie watching in the next 30 days, 40 days, I reckon. But
get it all done. Yeah.
My partner, you guys know her. She's into horror, but I think there's a line, and the nun crossed it, so she didn't watch it. So.
Yeah,
it's because it was shit. That was the line.
All right.
It was really fun being here, guys. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to next time.
Yeah.
No worries.
Have to get you on
again. Yeah, we'll get you in. We'll get you in for something non-horror. We'll see.
Bhaskar's into his comic book movies as well.
Yeah, so we'll get you in on a big comic book movie. We're getting your brother in for Aquaman. Kana.
Nice.
He's coming back. He was on our Ant-Man and the Wasp episode, so he's coming back for Aquaman. We'll do another one with you. Maybe Captain Marvel, since we talked about it today.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Or just make it a Nick Cage film. It'll be horror anyway.
Oh yes.
We haven't gone an entire episode almost without mentioning him.
Yeah. Almost an entire episode.
Almost.
Yeah.
Let's start on the Nick Cage right now in this.
All right. I guess that's it for this week. We'll see you in our next episode, which will be the Predator review, but it'll be in a couple of weeks. So all the best for the competition, and we'll see you there.
See you then. Bye.
Cheerio.
Bye.